that sets you off. It's that one thing that one person does that makes you react without even thinking. Triggers are tough to manage because we typically don't know what our triggers are unless we really sit and ask ourselves, where does this trigger come from? The danger with triggers is that if we don't know what that trigger is, we'll typically react without even knowing how we're reacting. And our reaction usually comes when we're either tired, we're really stressed, we're really confused, or have been having some kind of built up tension over time. Triggers are dangerous, and there are times that it gets the best of us. In our text today, we're reading through Peter's encouragement and instruction on spiritual discipline. Spiritual discipline involves the gospel, of course, but more importantly, how we respond to things in light of the gospel. And usually the gospel's response What's your trigger? There's always a word in What's your trigger? There's always a word, an action, a phrase, a situation, a reaction from someone that sets you off. It's that one thing that one person does that makes you react without even thinking. Triggers are tough to manage because we typically don't know what our triggers are unless we really sit and ask ourselves, where does this trigger come from? The danger with triggers is that if we don't know what that trigger is, we'll typically react without even knowing how we're reacting. And our reaction usually comes when we're either tired, we're really stressed, we're really confused, or have been having some kind of built up tension over time. Triggers are dangerous, and there are times that it gets the best of us. In our text today, we're reading through Peter's encouragement and instruction on spiritual discipline. Spiritual discipline involves the gospel, of course, but more importantly, how we respond to things in light of the gospel. And usually the gospel's response is a contrast to our innate response as a human being. Over the past few weeks, there have been built up tension in the world, in communities, in families, at home, among spouses. Parents are looking at their kids and are praying for the teachers that they criticized before. Kids are running around with this built up energy and craving for attention because their parents are finally home. In the world around us, people are wanting their haircuts and they're protesting on the streets for their haircuts. There's massive tension in the world that's been building up, and we're honestly in danger of reacting to whatever trigger is waiting to be pulled. And it's possible that when we let loose this trigger, it's going to be really ugly. Peter's community experiences this same kind of built up tension. And it's likely that in light of the tension and bullying they are experiencing, the temptation to respond in the same way is at the ready. So Peter's encouragement also comes with instruction to be disciplined, borderlining a warning even. And he says this, "Who will harm you if you are eager to do what is good? But even if you do suffer for doing what is right, you are blessed. Do not fear what they fear and do not be intimidated. Fear is the cause of triggers. It digs deep into our souls and isolates us from the rest of the world, and therefore isolates us from understanding the world and each other. Fear builds walls around us so that we forget about the truth, and then we create narratives of others that are untrue. Fear digs deep. It festers. It becomes a beast, and when it's let loose, it's ugly. Peter's combat to that beast is the gospel's version of suffering. But notice our view of suffering and the specific projection of suffering in this letter is very different. We think suffering and see slavery. Peter, in light of the cultural and historical context, sees suffering in light of humility. It's not a contrast of our view, but rather a different kind of suffering referenced. All Peter wants to do is talk about the suffering of Jesus as a humble servant. Servanthood in the light of the gospel in the same way is not slavery, but rather a humble presence in service to a greater good. In this letter, Peter is again stressing how mercy, which is the bigger theme showcased within the letter, is that humility that combats violent and abusive responses. We serve as servants by humbly giving mercy away. This is as tough for them as it is for us. Because they are human beings living in isolation, just as we are human beings living in isolation. And when we are isolated, tired, fearful, all we want to do is live in our anger. We want to justify the anger. And honestly, we probably have good reasons to be angry. Your trigger comes from someplace, and there's good reason for that trigger to be there. However, it is important to recognize the narrative that we are creating ourselves about either that person or that situation. I remember a time when my dad and I coexisted with so much tension. The years spent away from each other moved us further away from our relationship and molded us into near absolute strangers. So we fought. We said words that stung, and we knew it would sting. And over time, we let that hurt fester further. Until one day, sitting in a diner, my dad shared stories that I never heard before. The stories he shared with me revealed a part of him I never wanted to see, a broken man. For years, I didn't realize why I harbored tension with him until it hit me that I never wanted to accept his brokenness. I wanted to be the broken one, and I was truly a broken one. But the reason I felt that way was because broken people have a hard time having mercy for others' brokenness, especially if it looks so close to home. This is why the gospel exists. This is why the gospel is truth. The gospel sees brokenness and doesn't allow that brokenness to define the soul. From that moment on, I can honestly say very little triggered me, because the soul of a person is not defined by my fear. The soul of a person is not defined by my hurt. The soul of the person is not defined by their abuse toward me. The soul of a person is defined by the gospel. The soul of a person is defined by my mercy towards them. This is a tough thing to swallow, but the gospel still calls us to do this. The gospel still calls us toward mercy for all. The gospel still calls us to practice this mercy. So my question today is this: how can mercy heal your triggers? What hurt is festering in you? What fear is festering in you? Is there a person, a situation that is triggering that fear? Now, in what ways can you show mercy to that person or situation? And if you can figure out what that looks like, what mercy looks like, and how you can show that mercy, how can you practice that mercy this week toward them or toward the situation? My prayer for you this week is for that showcase of mercy to become a healer for your hurt or fear that slowly but surely heals your triggers as well. In the process, may that healing become your new normal.
The chasm that lay between us, how high the mountain I could not climb. In desperation, I turned to heaven and spoke your name into the night. Then through the darkness, your loving kindness tore through the shadows of my soul. The work is finished, the end is written. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Who could imagine so great a mercy? What heart could fathom such boundless grace? The God of ages stepped down from glory to wear my sin and bear my shame. The cross has spoken, I am forgiven. The King of Kings calls me his own. Beautiful Savior, I'm yours forever. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah, praise the one who sets me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah, praise the one who sets me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Jesus, yours is the victory. lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Jesus Christ, my living hope.
Would you pray with me? God, heal our triggers. Heal our fear. Love on us. When we don't show mercy, may you show mercy to us. When we have a hard time with mercy, may you continue to show that mercy to us. And when we project that out to the rest of the world, it becomes easier and easier when we practice it. May we practice mercy in your name. Amen.